What happens when a child's destiny is shaped by loss? When tragedy strikes from the very start of life, can it fuel the fire that makes a legend? For Miyamoto Musashi, the answer is a resounding yes. The year was 1584, and Japan was embroiled in the chaos of feudal warfare. Amidst the strife of clashing clans and bloodshed, a boy named Benos was born in the quiet village of Miyamoto. But this wasn't a birth to celebrate. The boy's mother, Omasa, tragically passed away during childbirth, leaving him motherless from the moment he took his first breath. This heartbreaking loss would leave a lasting mark on Benos, one that would ignite the fire inside him and shape the warrior he was destined to become. Raised by his father, the famous swordmaster Miyamoto Munai, and his uncle, a calm and compassionate Buddhist monk named Dorin, Benos was caught between two worlds. Munai was strict and disciplined, teaching his son the art of the sword with an unforgiving hand. Dorin, on the other hand, imparted the spiritual teachings of Buddhism, urging Benos to understand the deeper meanings of life and to cultivate compassion. Torn between these contrasting influences, the boy found himself feeling a deep loneliness, unsure of his place in the world. Yet, this very solitude would spark the desire for independence that would drive Benos forward. He didn't want to follow in the footsteps of his father or his uncle. He wanted to forge his own path. This internal struggle would soon evolve into the beginning of an incredible journey, one that would lead to the creation of the legendary samurai known as Miyamoto Musashi. From the ashes of tragedy, Musashi's indomitable will was forged. The loss of his mother created a hunger for something more, a desire to prove himself to the world, and the warrior's journey began. Father and son, the duel that defined a warrior. What happens when a son challenges his father, not just in skill but in philosophy? The answer was a battle that changed everything, one that would set the stage for Musashi's legendary career. Under the strict guidance of his father, Munai, Benos grew into a skilled young swordsman. Munai was a master of the traditional techniques of the sword. His reputation as an unmatched warrior was known throughout the land. Yet, despite his skill, Benos wasn't satisfied. He didn't want to simply follow his father's rigid teachings. He wanted to create something new, a sword style of his own that blended strength with agility. This clash of ideals between father and son was inevitable. Munai, a purist at heart, couldn't understand his son's desire to break from tradition. The tension between them grew, and their training sessions became battlegrounds of their own. Benos, ever the rebel, felt confined by his father's strict methods. Munai, in turn, felt his son was throwing away the legacy of their family. At just 13 years old, Benos couldn't take it any longer. He left his home, changed his name to Takao, and set off to carve his own path, free from the shadow of his father. This act of defiance wasn't just about rejecting his father's methods. It was about claiming his independence, stepping into his own future, and becoming a warrior with a unique identity. The decision to leave his father was more than just an escape. It was the birth of a new warrior. Musashi's journey was no longer defined by his family's traditions, but by his own ambition and desire to redefine the path of the samurai, the wild path to mastery, fighting to find himself. What happens when a young samurai throws himself into endless battles, determined to prove his worth? It's not just about mastering the sword, it's about discovering who he truly is. Now free from the constraints of his father's teachings, Takao was a warrior driven by raw ambition. He sought out fight after fight, not to build his reputation, but to prove something to himself. He was wild, unpredictable, a force of nature, driven by an insatiable desire to challenge his limits and see just how far his skills could take him. His first major challenge came in the form of the infamous samurai Adimiki, who had been traveling across Japan, challenging anyone who dared face him in combat. Most saw it as a death sentence, but Takao saw it as his moment to make a name for himself. Ignoring the warnings of others, he eagerly accepted the challenge. In a crowded square, the duel between the two samurai began. Ki, a seasoned warrior, was expected to overpower Takao with his experience and skill. But Takao, armed only with a wooden sword and dressed in humble clothes, was faster, more agile, and full of raw energy. The battle was quick and brutal, but Takao's ferocity won the day. With a swift, precise move, he disarmed Ki and struck a fatal blow, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. Takao's victory over Ki wasn't just a demonstration of skill. It was a bold proclamation that he had arrived. This fight marked the beginning of his rise to legendary status, driven not just by talent, but by a relentless desire to prove himself to the world. The beast within, confronting arrogance and ego. What happens when a warrior's ego threatens to undo everything he's worked for? For Takao, it was a lesson learned the hard way, one that would change the course of his life. After his stunning victory over Ki, Takao's reputation grew rapidly, but so did his arrogance. The young warrior became reckless, throwing himself into battle after battle with little regard for his own well-being or the consequences of his actions. Every duel was a chance to prove his superiority, and he quickly gained a reputation for being impulsive and brash. His arrogance eventually caught up with him, however, when he crossed paths with the famous Zen Buddhist monk, Taekwan Soho. Taekwan was known for his wisdom and his ability to tame even the wildest spirits. Seeing Takao's pride and anger, he captured the young warrior and left him bound to a tree for several days, forcing him to confront his inner demons. During this time, Takao raged against his restraints, but Taekwan remained calm and composed. He didn't fight Takao physically. He fought his spirit. True strength, Taekwan told him, is not in the sword, but in the mind. This was a turning point for Takao. He began to understand that strength didn't just come from physical prowess. It came from control, discipline, and inner peace. Takao's time with Taekwan didn't just humble him, it transformed him. The lesson of mind over matter would become the cornerstone of his martial philosophy, leading him down the path of self-mastery that would define his future. The path of a broken warrior, Musashi's transformation. What happens when a warrior is broken, not just physically but mentally and spiritually? When everything he's fought for crumbles, where does he go? For Musashi, the answer lay in self-reflection and the rebirth of his purpose. Following the bloody battle at Sekigahara, Musashi found himself a broken man. His right arm was pierced by an enemy spear, and the ideals that had once driven him now seemed hollow. With no clan to call his own and no purpose to guide him, Musashi was lost. But there was still a spark within him, a glimmer of the warrior spirit that had driven him forward all these years. As Musashi recovered from his physical wounds, he found solace in the kindness of strangers and began to reflect on his life. It wasn't just his body that needed healing, it was his soul. In the quiet solitude of a small village, Musashi turned inward, questioning the path he had taken and wondering what kind of warrior he wanted to be. Musashi's period of isolation wasn't just a time of physical recovery, it was the beginning of his mental and spiritual transformation. From the ashes of defeat, Musashi would rise, not as the same man, but as a new enlightened version of himself. Musashi's awakening, the true strength of the mind. What if true strength isn't about mastering the sword, but mastering the mind? For Musashi, this was the turning point that would reshape his entire philosophy. During his time of self-reflection, Musashi began to study the wisdom of great philosophers like Confucius and Laozi. He realized that the sword was not just a tool for combat, it was a tool for self-discipline, for mental clarity, and for personal growth. Musashi knew that in order to master the sword, he needed to master himself first. The warrior who had once been driven by ego and glory now saw the sword as an instrument of enlightenment. He spent countless hours training not just his body but his mind. He learned to control his emotions, to clear his thoughts, and to understand the deeper principles behind his art. Musashi's awakening marked the beginning of his rise to legendary status. No longer driven by pride or anger, he would now walk the path of true mastery, using the sword as a tool for enlightenment and self-improvement. The fall of the Yoshioka clan. What happens when a warrior dismantles not just a rival, but an entire legacy? In Kyoto, Musashi challenged the famed Yoshioka school, targeting its master, Seido Yoshioka. Known for his impeccable skill, Seido represented centuries of tradition. On the day of their duel, Musashi arrived late, rattling Seido's composure. Calm and calculating, Musashi exploited his opponent's frustration, defeating him with a single, precise strike, shattering the school's reputation. Seido's defeat enraged the Yoshioka clan, prompting his brother Denichido to seek revenge. In a duel outside Kyoto, Musashi used the terrain and Deni's aggression to his advantage. With swift, decisive strikes, He disarmed and defeated Denny, even using his opponent's weapon to deliver the final blow. Musashi's triumph over the Yoshioka clan wasn't just about skill, it was a statement. He tore down a centuries-old legacy, proving that strategy and intellect could outmatch even the strongest traditions. Musashi's final challenge. After defeating Denny Chido, Musashi had enraged the Yoshioka clan beyond reason. Their humiliation turned into a desperate thirst for revenge. This wasn't going to be another duel, it was an ambush. The clan gathered a small army of warriors to end Musashi once and for all. They chose a sacred grove near the Ichi-Joy temple for the showdown, determined to overwhelm him with sheer numbers. But Musashi wasn't caught off guard. He studied the terrain, knowing the grove's narrow paths and dense trees would even the odds. When the battle began, it wasn't a fight, it was a storm of blades. Musashi moved with precision and focus, weaving through attackers, dodging strikes, and delivering swift, lethal blows. The grove echoed with the clash of steel, but Musashi remained untouchable. One by one, the warriors fell, their numbers dwindling against his unmatched skill and strategy. Musashi's triumph over the Yoshioka clan wasn't just a victory, it was the stuff of legends. He had defeated an entire force, proving his mastery of the sword, his unmatched mind for strategy, and his ability to defy impossible odds. This battle cemented Musashi's place in history as the invincible samurai, a living symbol of martial arts mastery. Miyamoto Musashi's journey is a testament to resilience, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of mastery. From a boy shaped by tragedy to a warrior who redefined the art of the sword, Musashi's life wasn't just about fighting, it was about understanding himself and the world around him. His victories, especially against the Yoshioka clan, weren't merely physical. They were triumphs of the mind and spirit, carving his name into history as the invincible samurai. Musashi's story reminds us that true strength lies in perseverance, self-discovery, and the courage to challenge tradition. If his journey inspires you, share his legacy and explore how his philosophy can shape our lives today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories of legendary figures.